Donnie Darko is the story of the titular character, his struggle through adolescence, and his eventual decision to save the world from a collapsing tangent universe, as foretold by a zombie in a bunny costume. You know what? That doesn't explain a whole lot. Let's go back. Donnie Darko is about time travel, as explained in the book he is given called The Philosophy of Time Travel. Only, the film really uses time as a force of God, as a means to explore free will, so it's not really about time travel at all. Yeah, let's go back again. What Donnie Darko is subtextually about might only be understood by first understanding the narrative. Many find the film's plot confusing because it delves into philosophical pontificating and time travel physics, but the structure of the film, its bones, are simple enough. Two things before we begin to unravel the narrative. First, this is only one interpretation. There are others, and expounding on one interpretation of events does not necessarily invalidate others. Second, there are multiple cuts of Donnie Darko. I am using the director's cut in hopes of covering as much material as possible. Let's begin. Chapter 1 of The Philosophy of Time Travel states that a tangent universe is one parallel to the primary universe. The tangent universe is unstable, and when it collapses, it may create a singularity that will consume all of existence. The Philosophy of Time Travel also states that a metal object, called the artifact, appearing is a sign that the tangent universe has been created. The artifact must be returned to the primary universe to correct the space-time continuum. Confused yet? In the beginning of the film, a jet engine appears and crushes Donnie's home. The engine is the artifact. Donnie has been chosen by the universe to be the living receiver, a chosen one of sorts. This is probably due to his proximity to the artifact. He is given supernatural powers to protect himself and accomplish his mission of returning the artifact, the jet engine, to the primary universe. The engine should have killed him, but he was outside of his bedroom talking to Frank. Frank is the manipulated dead. Donnie is haunted by visions of Frank, who appears to him in the form of a 6-foot-tall rabbit. In reality, Frank is only in a Halloween costume. After Frank, who is a normal human being, accidentally kills Gretchen, Donnie's girlfriend, Donnie shoots Frank in the head. Frank then presumably becomes the manipulated dead, traveling through time to earlier in the story to assist Donnie in fixing the timeline. Frank becomes the manipulated dead because of his association with Donnie.
Why you wear that stupid bunny suit?
Why are you wearing that stupid man suit?
The manipulated living are simply the people with whom Donnie interacts. God, or whatever supernatural force that controls time, is quietly manipulating both the living and the dead to guide Donnie in making the right decisions and the right moves to save the universe. Everyone around Donnie is carefully manipulating his actions. Think about it. If he never killed Frank, then nobody would have gotten him out of bed to save him from the engine. But in order to kill Frank, he needed a reason. Love. Because he lived through the crash, he met Gretchen. He needed to meet her, fall in love, watch her die, kill someone for revenge, and create the manipulated dead to help him. This is a paradox, but we won't get into that. Also, Donnie's science teacher is also manipulating him into learning about time travel, giving him the Philosophy of Time Travel book. All of this ties into the film's message about choice, which we will cover later. Over the course of the film, we see Donnie slowly understanding his powers. He sees supernatural water appearing from inside of people. These are connected with time travel. At the end of the film, after a series of events leads his mother into a plane that flies near his home, events that he set into motion without realizing it, he uses his telekinesis to rip off the plane's engine and creates a time portal with water. Donnie, no longer afraid of dying alone, accepts his fate. If not for killing Frank and creating the manipulated dead in the tangent universe, he would have died in the primary universe. He accepts this and dies. Really, Donnie may not need to die. Roberta Sparrow, Grandma Death, was probably a living receiver before. That must be how she learned all of this. How else could she? But whether or not Donnie needed to die, he allows it to happen. The final chapter in the book is called Dreams. Although the events of the tangent universe, which is most of the film's narrative, did not happen in the primary universe, the characters are plagued by nightmares of things that no longer really happened. That's why the characters, suddenly remembering fragments of the tangent universe, are so upset. It's why Jim Cunningham is crying. He realizes he will be caught for his child pornography in the primary universe as he was in the tangent. It's why all the characters are reflecting on who they are at the end. In addition to the bizarre, supernatural elements of the narrative, Donnie Darko also employs tried-and-true literary devices like foreshadowing through imagery. Donnie and Gretchen are seen playing an arcade game. In the game, a car crashes. This foreshadows Gretchen's death. Donnie's death is also foreshadowed through imagery. His Halloween costume is a skeleton. Now all of this is merely about the narrative of Donnie Darko. It's weird, and it's supposed to be, but it's only difficult to follow in terms of the minutiae of time travel physics. The structure of the story is easy enough to follow, but even with a thorough knowledge of every last detail of the plot itself, that doesn't even begin to explain the film, because this is not simply a narrative jigsaw puzzle. When people ask, in a confused blur, what is Donnie Darko even about anyway, they are usually only referring to the plot, but the story is not what Donnie Darko is about. The complex film is actually about complexity. Donnie Darko presents us with binary systems of good and evil, fear and love, and shows the inherent problems with seeing the universe in a strict black and white dynamic. The most obvious example is through the self-help philosophy of easy answers called attitudinal beliefs, written and espoused by Jim Cunningham. Donnie's teacher, Kitty, is a firm, nearly fundamentalist follower of this simplistic pseudo-religion. The idea of fear versus love may work in a Disney film, but as an entire philosophy upon which to base one's life, it's lacking in substance and practical applications. In reality, fear is absolutely necessary. It's a warning system for danger, a reflexive reaction to potential harm. Fear is not the mind killer. It's a required component for human existence and our survival. Love can bring its own kind of pain. In short, Jim Cunningham and his disciples don't know what they're talking about, and Donnie finds it completely offensive that he's being taught this in school.
Well, life isn't that simple. I mean, who cares if Ling Ling returns the wallet and keeps the money? It has nothing to do with either fear or love.
Fear and love are the deepest of human emotions.
Okay, but you're not listening to me. There are other things that need to be taken into account here, like the whole spectrum of human emotion.
Donnie is the mouthpiece for the director in this case, rejecting a simplistic outlook of the entire scope of humanity. But that's not the only time that limited binary choice appears in the film. Early in the movie, Donnie's sister, Elizabeth, recently reaching voting age, announces she will vote for Michael Dukakis instead of George H.W. Bush. This results in an argument at the table. This comes up again later in the film as we see Donnie's father watch the presidential debate between the Democratic and Republican candidates. A two-party system. A binary choice. This comes up again in the background multiple times, sometimes as part of a news radio program, and sometimes as something written on the refrigerator. We also get a lingering shot of the American flag on the ceiling of Donnie's room, further hammering in the point. The film attacks the idea of a simplistic worldview in other ways. Donnie and his classmates are reading The Destructors by Graham Greene. In the story, a group of young boys destroy a house, but the idea of the story, as stated in this film, is that destruction can actually be a form of creation. At a PTA meeting, Kitty insists that the school ban the book from English class, calling it pornography. Kitty represents those who see everything in black and white. She misunderstood the ironic text of the book, and due to her narrow view of good and evil, love and fear, she sees the book as an abomination. She can't be reasoned with. Donnie and his girlfriend, Gretchen, present an idea for their science class about allowing infants to experience sensory input that would give them happy memories of their first 2 years, because typically nobody remembers anything from that age. Donnie's teacher is clearly impressed, but he reminds Donnie and Gretchen that darkness may be a necessary component for human progression. And this somehow leads us to Jesus. It's easy to make Donnie's story an allegory to the sacrifice of Christ, but the film is less interested in making that all-too-common movie protagonist as Jesus comparison, and more focused on showing us another hole in simple binary thought. When Donnie leaves the theater, we see on the marquee that there's a screening of The Last Temptation of Christ, a film by Martin Scorsese. Based on the book of the same name, the film is about Jesus and his struggle with various forms of temptation, including but not limited to lust. In drawing this parallel, director Richard Kelly proclaims that a hero is not completely good. He is a mix of emotions, of temptations, of loyalties, but someone who ultimately tries to do something to benefit others. Darkness is as necessary as light. This runs contrary to teachings of Abrahamic religions about the battle between good and evil, represented by powerful entities, or many other religions that espouse some kind of dark and light, good karma, bad karma binary system. Donnie is only a Christ figure in the loosest sense. He's actually the subversion of the Christ figure, used only to draw a distinction, During one of his therapy sessions, Donnie tells Dr. Thurman that every living creature dies alone. When asked by the therapist if he feels alone, Donnie says this.
I just don't debate it anymore. It's absurd.
The search for God is absurd.
It is if everyone dies alone.
It may not be a coincidence that both Donnie and Dr. Thurman refer to understanding their place in the universe and debating the existence of God as absurd, because what they're really talking about is called absurdism. Mentioned by Kierkegaard but later popularized by Albert Camus in The Myth of Sisyphus and other essays, the author describes his philosophy thusly. Man stands face to face with the irrational. He feels within him his longing for happiness and for reason. The absurd is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. Absurdist philosophy revolves around the conflict between the human need to seek inherent value and meaning in life and complete inability to find any. Absurdism does not propose that there is definitely no meaning or value to anything, but that the human mind cannot possibly comprehend it. Absurdism is compatible with both atheism and agnosticism, both of which are referenced in the film directly, but the film's key philosophy appears to be absurdism. All of these things, binary emotions, moral absolutism about good and evil, absurdism, they all connect to one singular theme: the complexity of existence, our infantile attempts to understand it, and failing this, confining it to simplest terms rather than the broad, far-reaching, expansive universe that it really is. In short, the film is about the desire for free will and our limited overall power. Donnie Darko is not easily understood, but that is a purposeful meta-extension of its core theme and philosophy. Thanks for watching.